Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am so excited today, coming from Hawaii, to have Jessie Jennings here with me. She is an incredible surf and lifestyle photographer, and I fell in love with her work because it is in such a magical place and a place that I love in the ocean, and I know she does as well. And so I'm going to hand it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm Jess. I am like she said, a surf and lifestyle photographer who grew up in New Mexico, and now I am a full-time freelance photographer, pretty much chasing waves, chasing big waves, and shooting surf and lifestyle, and kind of documenting all the moments in between as well in competitive surfing. And yeah.
Now, this past weekend, you and I talked about it briefly, but you just did the 2022 Van Pipe Masters, which is such a massive competition. And you've been jet setting around. You've done a little time in Australia. Where's been your favorite place to be right now?
Oh, it's tough. I think everywhere I get to go brings a whole new perspective, whether it's culturally or just in terms of the destination, and definitely diverse in terms of surf. So it's really hard to narrow one thing because I like shooting so many different types of surf. Um, Hawaii has been amazing. I just documented the Vans Pipe Masters, which was really intimate, and we got to get really close with athletes, and
It's cool.
documenting the competitive surfing in that way
Yeah.
is just phenomenal. Really allows insight to a very kind of like bubble of a world of like competitive surfing. So that in terms of experience has been amazing. But if I had to pick one place, Indonesia, where I've spent the last 9 months or so,
Yeah.
in the Mentawai Islands, is beautiful. The
Yeah.
culture is just so rich, and the surf is really nothing compared. It's a strip of islands in Indonesia that are just absolutely beautiful, provide in terms of surf,
Yeah.
and really diverse in really everything. So
Love it. I love it.
yeah.
I want to start at the very beginning for you and learn where your passion for photography came from. When did the camera getting into your hand? When did that start?
I have always been creative.
Yeah.
Ever since I was young, I would pick up every kind of creative project that I
Yeah.
could do, whether it was tie-dyeing shirts or
Yeah.
like painting on shoes or like making homemade soap. I was doing everything, and I didn't never really picked up a camera until I got to college. I had shot a few, like I've picked up a camera here and there, but it was never really something that stuck with me. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't A lot of photographers get in early because either their parents are photographers or they're
Right.
gifted a camera,
Right.
and I never had that. So I never really stepped into the photo world. And I moved from New Mexico to LA when I was 18 to attend school, started surfing, and I always had an ocean bug. I was really fortunate to travel a bit growing up. My family's from South Africa, so got some time in the water there. Was
Yeah.
always itching for more once I got just, a taste of salt water. So I moved to LA, and then I started surfing. That became a huge passion of mine, spending as much time as I could in the water. And then I actually won a housing for my iPhone. So it was like this little plastic housing that you could put your iPhone into and then take
Yeah.
it into the water and
Yeah.
shoot waves and surf. And one day I did that instead of surfing and fell in love with it. Was
Right.
just like it was connecting to the ocean in a whole new way. And then
Yeah.
beyond that, being able to share that, those moments with the ocean with other people. And
Yeah.
coming from New Mexico, that was something that I really, really quickly became passionate about because I didn't have the ocean at my front doorstep growing up. So I really appreciated and cherished those moments.
Yeah.
And that over time just developed into something that I was like, this is what I love,
Yeah.
and this is what I want to do. And I have
Yeah.
no idea how I'm going to do it, but
Yep.
I'm going to figure it out. So eventually I ended up buying a camera, buying a housing.
Nice.
It took me some time, and got into it. And my passion for photography, I've always had this creative bug, but it was like suddenly my passion for creativity also merged with my passion for the ocean and being in the water. And those two worlds coming together were just, I can't even describe it. It was like this aha moment for me of like, wow, I'm
Yeah.
so passionate about this. I
Yeah.
can spend every day doing this. And it was also something for me that really just allowed me to step out of kind of the bubble that I was living in and step away and just be present and be so
Yeah.
immersed in something. And then over time, as I have pursued a career in freelance photography, that creativity has developed to shooting outside of the water, shooting surf competitions, shooting lifestyle and brand campaigns and
Yeah.
swimwear campaigns, and being able to kind of have that creativity flow through all these different
Yeah.
mediums and all these different elements, and be able to kind of still continue to base everything around the ocean and around the water,
Yeah.
which is what I kind of do now.
And you have, when I was looking at your portfolio, you have such an incredible eye too, and there's so much beauty that you are able to capture. What inspires you about capturing in the water?
I think it's so many things beyond just the allure of the ocean that I think,
Yeah.
every surfer, every person who
Yeah.
finds that connection with the ocean, I think that's the thing that always brings us back is
Yeah.
just this ability to immerse ourselves in something so much bigger than us, but also something that connects so many different worlds, so many different cultures,
Yep.
so many different ecosystems, like both literally and
Yeah.
figuratively. That is always what inspires me. But coming from a background of living in New Mexico for the first
Yeah.
18 years of my life and always having this thing at the back of my head of like being so drawn into surf culture and the ocean and,
Yeah.
surfing, but not having access to that, I think capturing the ocean and being able to share it with people who don't have access to that, and spending time outdoors, spending time in the ocean
Yeah.
is such a luxury, and it's definitely not something that everyone is afforded in their lifetimes. And so I think being able to capture that and share these emotions and these moments and these more intimate moments with both the ocean and other and
Yeah.
surfers, and share that with other people, I think is something that always keeps me coming back.
And what I love is that outside of your freelance photography and all these projects that you work on, you have a passion for helping other creatives and small business owners navigate building their businesses. And a big thing that's part of your platform is mental health. How have you used your platform to combine your beautiful photography with this other side of mental health and helping others?
The way that I see it is that, I'm pursuing something. When you work freelance or you work for yourself,
Absolutely.
you're kind of calling all of the shots.
Yeah.
And, you're deciding, are you working 9 to 5 today? Are you working 9 to 10 p.m.? You're calling all of the shots. And within that, you have to learn to find balance yourself. You have to not only do the work, but you have to create the work and create the opportunities, because until you're, I think, much further along than I am right now, those opportunities don't just like appear on your doorstep.
Absolutely.
And so I think for me, that's like mental health is such a big part of that balance,
Yeah.
because it's, taking care of my own mental health so I can show up not just like in terms of my business, but also when I'm chasing waves and shooting big waves, my physical health, how mentally prepared I am to,
Yeah.
to take on big waves, and kind of the mental preparation that you need for that. All of these little inner workings are what play into being able to show up as, the best uh photographer that I can be. And
Absolutely.
so I think that, some people say, oh, keep, your personal and private life separate from your career. Whereas I see these two things, especially, and I think other creatives and like people in the media and the creative industry would agree, is that it's so hard to pull these two things apart. So in the beginning, I
Absolutely.
really struggled because I was like, mental health is so important to me.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that I needed to talk about when I was going through really dark times, and I slowly found that I connected with a lot more people who are
Yeah.
actually like, wow, I'm going through the same thing. You're living this amazing life, what
Yeah.
it seems like on the surface and what you're sharing on social media. I had no idea you were going through this as well.
Yeah.
And so with time, I've just found that, the platform that I want to uphold and the people that I want to attract
Yeah.
are, especially even in terms of my clientele and the people I want to work with, are
Yeah.
people who not only appreciate my work, and what I can create for them,
Yeah.
but also appreciate that, this is raw and real. And I think that's what photography
Absolutely.
is. And so being able to find balance between these things, I think, to show up for my clients the way I want to show up for them, having this, I am going to talk about mental health. I'm going to talk about, yeah, on the outside, it looks like I'm traveling to all these amazing places and
Yeah.
doing these amazing jobs. And it's all this like, amazing things. The grass is greener on the other side. But in reality, I've had the best year of my life in terms of my career in 2022.
Yep.
And it's also probably been easily one of the hardest years in my hardest years of my life in terms of
Yeah.
growth and development.
Yep.
And it's always just wild to me how many people I connect to when I just open up.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, also just being able to talk about it, I am really grateful to slowly be growing this platform and being able to be open about this, but also that if I can talk about it and people see, oh, she's doing this, but she's also talking about it and
Yep.
struggling with these things,
Yep.
it starts to open up the conversation elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And my only hope is that someone sees that I'm opening up about it, and then that starts a conversation about mental health elsewhere.
Yep.
And down the line, it can be a small thing, just checking in on someone, checking in on a
Yeah.
friend, a fellow creative who might go quiet, anything along those lines. But it does add up, and being able to be open about these conversations and talk
Yeah.
about these things will save a life down the line, you
Absolutely.
know? And so I find that I see no separation between, my professional and my personal life, because I think to show up in one is to show up in both
Yep.
of them.
Yep.
And so yeah.
Yeah. No, and today we are preached so much about work-life balance, and some people make it seem so easy, and other times it is a struggle. I'm in the same like I struggle with that. It's not two different worlds. It's one world. How do we make it function? And it doesn't function all the time. And sometimes you do break, and sometimes the world crumbles around you, and you have to figure out what are ways that you can lean on others, that you can help. Like there are so many. I think today in our world it is so difficult, but at the same time there's so much out there that can help you at the same time, and I have an appreciation for that because years ago that wasn't the case, and
Yeah.
especially when I was bullied growing up. I was like, especially in middle school and leading into high school, like, and there was nothing like that. There was never the case of mental health help when we were
Yeah.
young. So it's nice now that it is such a focus for people, that there are resources, there are ways, and conversations are open to being able to help each other through mental health.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I think it's been a huge shift in the last, it's in the last few years
absolutely.
alone.
Yep.
And it's very much needed in every aspect of life. But yeah, it it warms my heart to see that people are starting to open up and talking about these things, because
Absolutely.
pretty quick, it especially with the rise of like, TikTok and social
Yeah.
media having such a big impact
Yes.
on, the younger generations,
Yeah.
seeing that all of these people are also just normal people
Yeah.
is so important to the mental health
Yeah.
of everybody.
Yep. I'm so happy that you are sharing, the good stuff and the bad as well, because I think a lot of people just focus on the bright and shiny and that's what they share. But that is not the reality of every single day. And I appreciate you doing that because it does, it helps the conversation keep moving forward, for more people and for more people to speak out and say, hey, I'm having this experience as well.
Yeah.
I relate to you as well that you operate as a one woman show. Uh, and I am very much sitting in the same seat as you. So there are a lot of challenges of being a one woman show. And it's like you were talking about, you can work at 9 to 5 or you can be working a 16-hour day. What are the biggest challenges you see as being a one woman show?
I think in my I mean, so I'll just preface it with this.
Yes.
The the ratio of photographers when it comes to male to female is almost exactly 50%, which
Okay.
is amazing and
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's, 50% of the playing field's women and 50% of the playing field is men. I know
Exactly.
that leaves out a whole uh category, a whole
Yep.
entire group of people, but just simple plain 50-50 women and men. When it comes to surf photography, 1 in 10 surf photographers are female.
It's crazy.
So that is a huge, huge gap.
Yeah.
And that is from my experience and from, talking to a ton of other women
Yeah.
in the surf media world. That is a huge gap, and it is something that we feel every day.
Yep.
Um, and it comes with its challenges. I focus on shooting big waves, and I can't tell you the things that people have said to me, how hard it is that to be taken seriously,
Yeah.
and really existing in a space that historically men have always been the surf photographers. Men are telling the stories.
Yeah.
Even men are sharing, men are telling women's perspective of stories. There's been a
Yeah.
huge shift in, bringing in the woman's perspective to tell women's stories. Um, but it definitely is challenging across the board. The event that I shot this last weekend with the Vans Pipe Masters, Vans actually saw a huge gap in the media, in the surf media, that were attending and covering these events
Yeah.
between male and female. So
Yeah.
they actually took initiative, and it was absolutely an amazing experience, but they took initiative and they invited a lot of smaller alternative woman run media to come and cover this event.
Love
And not only was it a huge event for women surfing in general, but to have so many more female creatives and
yeah.
females in the creative media industry getting to capture these experiences and these moments from their perspective
Yeah.
and tell these women's stories, I think one resonates with a lot more women, but
Yeah.
two just shows that there is still this gap. And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
it, it's a very interesting world. I think that women are paving the way. I
Yeah.
think we're bringing it. It's not that I'm not definitely not the first woman doing what I'm doing, but I look up to the women who are paving the way, and I look up to the women who are not taking no for an answer, who are creating. I recently had a conversation actually with an editor, who I was putting a story together with, and I said, it can be easy for men to show up in this space
Yeah.
and have a place.
Yep.
Whereas there can be women who are, if not equally or
Yeah.
more talented, show up in this space and still don't have, a place. They still
Yep.
have to create space for themselves.
Yep.
So, on top of, just wanting to be really good at what you do, you
Yeah.
also have to, create space in this world for that. And
Yep.
it's definitely, there's so many doors opening up. People are seeing this and taking initiative. And
Yeah.
that's something that Vans did with this event, that so many women creatives who got to come cover this are just so blown away by the experience and the opportunity, because it can be really tough.
Yeah.
And it's one thing when there is this 50-50 ratio, but there's this 1
Yeah.
in 10 ratio, and it definitely is prevalent. And I think just the biggest challenge of not only trying to be
Yeah.
really good at what you do, but getting people to want to listen and getting people to understand that, not only do we have to try and be good at what we do and continue to learn, we also have to kind of like pave our own way and make
Yeah.
space for ourselves in this
Absolutely.
world.
It is so difficult. And it's once again, it's the other great conversation that's happening right now of women can do just as good, if not better. And it is a fantastic conversation that I'm glad is being had every single place. Um, but I love your perspective because I had no idea the ratio of female to male photographers in the surf world. So what a massive difference between that 50-50 and the 1 in 10.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's only more prevalent in the water, which is my focus because it's where I got my start. So
Yep.
I shoot obviously from the beach and shoot lifestyle, and that's all on the
Yep.
beach. But a majority of what I focus on is shooting in the water. So I take my camera in a housing and I'm swimming out there,
Yep.
and it is wild to see how many fewer women there are.
Yep.
And then you start entering conversation of wanting to shoot bigger waves,
Yep.
and that number is closer to 1 in 100, if
Yeah.
not more.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of women in the world, all of who I look up to and is
Yeah.
so inspired by on a daily basis. But even in the conversation of pipeline, which is one of the gnarliest waves in the world,
Yeah.
there's really only a handful of women who go out there and push themselves in bigger waves.
That's
And when you show up and you're like, I want to put time in a pipe,
yeah.
people laugh at you. The guys laugh at you. They're like, oh yeah, okay. And they're like, oh, like, do you shoot from the beach? I'm like, no, no, no. Like I'm in the water. And they're like, what do you mean you're in the water? I'm like,
I'm
I
in
shoot
there.
big waves from the water. I want to
Yeah.
be in there. And then the conversation completely shifts, and it is super prevalent, but it's amazing to see, Krista Funk, who's a fellow female water photographer and surf photographer. She just shot the Vans Pipe Masters and swam in some of the gnarliest conditions for 8 hours.
Good
And I
grief.
can't tell you that there are many men that I have seen do that. And she is so gnarly, but so inspiring to see these women out there
Yeah.
changing the way and seeing that, if she can do this, one day I can do this.
Yes.
Whereas, like, in a lot of the spaces I've been in previously, especially in Indonesia, there's so few women shooting out there in the
Yeah.
water, especially year round. And so it can be really isolating to not see
Yeah.
that and then wonder, do I have a place here? Do I belong here? Is there space for
Absolutely.
me here?
That's
So yeah, it's definitely it's a really interesting world to exist
yeah.
in, but really amazing to also be in a time and space
Yeah.
that things are changing and things are shifting, and it's very apparent and clear. And the people who really are making waves in the surf industry are also starting to realize that, and the people who do have big stake in the surf industry and the surf world are really starting to realize that.
Now, I am super curious though, because I'm such a geek with camera gear. But yours is very unique because you don't have the ability to change a lens very quickly when you are in the water. Like you've got your housing. What is your gear lineup? What's your go-to?
It's about 2 checked bags, 1 carry-on bag, and a backpack, which as I would love to just be able to hire someone to help me carry
Oh,
around
I'm
and lug
sure.
all my
I'm
equipment
sure.
around. Um, but in terms of water, so I run everything Sony. I've
Okay.
been shooting Sony for 4 years now,
Okay.
and shooting mirrorless, and I prefer them because they're smaller. So I put it in an Aquatech housing, which is like a big housing
Yeah.
that allows me to take it all into the water. I've
Okay.
got a bunch of different lenses and lens ports, which all adapt to each other based on the conditions I'm going to be shooting in.
Yeah.
So if I want to shoot something wide and with a dome port, then I
Yeah.
can shoot that. Or I also have the option of shooting with like a 70 to 200 lens, which is much bigger in the water. But I have a zoom port, which allows me to actually change the zoom in the water, which is really cool.
Nice.
But that's kind of my go-to. It's a lot of bulky equipment,
Oh,
tripod, long lenses as well to shoot from the
Yeah.
beach, and then everything to get in the water.
Yeah.
So that's my setup now.
Whenever we travel, everybody wonders why I never have, like, we carry backpacks and have our carry-on suitcases. Nobody ever understands why I never have space for the clothes that I want to pack. And I'm like, my backpack is filled with camera gear. I'm like, I don't have the
Yeah.
ability like everybody else to just, I'm like, I'm the photographer. I'm the person that's doing the video
Yeah.
for the whole family. I'm like, for every trip, I'm like, I have to carry my stuff with me.
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to just say, no, it's okay. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely rough traveling.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'll show up somewhere and, like a hotel or someone will
Yeah.
comment and be like, "Wow, like you carry a lot of like you must have a lot of clothes." And I'm like, "I would love to have a lot of clothes. I have a lot of camera equipment." you know? So I carry like maybe half of a suitcase of
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah.
Everything else is camera equipment. So when I show up somewhere and people are like, "Oh, let's do this," I'm like, "Oh, I actually don't have clothes for that.
I
I
actually
live in the ocean."
I didn't pack a single thing for this trip.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been featured in quite a few magazines and publications. What does that feel like when you get to see your work in those publications and magazines?
That's an interesting one. I mean, it's amazing. I think when someone is approaching you to share your work or to publish your work, I think it makes you feel, obviously the recognition is great,
Yeah.
especially in a world that I think photographers and videographers and creatives in general
Yeah.
are one very undervalued and two very underappreciated.
Yep.
The media and marketing and advertising is what makes the world go round,
Yes.
and there's so many creatives who
Yeah.
are giving it their all. So much, like, work for a creative person is
Yeah.
so much more than just showing up to a 9 to 5.
Absolutely.
You're putting everything into it. So I think when you see yourself it was you when you see your work published or you see people reaching out with interest of publication, the recognition is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it means that you're on the right path. You're doing something that's interesting and hopefully inspiring enough that you're getting people to just stop
Yeah.
and just stop for a moment, which can be really hard to do in this day and age because everyone's constantly scrolling. Everything, but no matter what social media is, everyone's constantly scrolling. It's hard
Yep.
to get someone's attention for more than a few seconds.
Yep.
And so it's nice to see it in traditional print, period, no
Yeah.
matter what. But just the idea of getting, making and creating something and capturing something that's interesting and
Yeah.
inspiring enough to get someone to stop. And
Yeah.
then I think just beyond that, like getting to share the world that I'm so grateful and so fortunate to experience, and getting to share that with others who maybe trying to navigate how to get into this world, how to get their
Yeah.
foot into, spending more time outside, spending more time in the ocean, or
Yep.
people who just want to immerse themselves in something that is new and is fresh to them. And
Right.
so in that way, it's amazing to get to share my work that way. And
Yeah.
yeah, no matter, publications big or small, to
Yeah.
see your work, see your work that are interested enough to share it, I think is pretty unique and an amazing feeling.
We have the world we have become is we're all a bunch of ADD people who are just
Yeah,
on through TikTok every 2 seconds looking at so much content. Um,
yeah,
that it is once your content sticks out, it's amazing that it's grabbed somebody's attention because, like I said, we can't hold focus.
yeah.
It is very short and sweet. Where do you find creativity in the work that you do?
I think I think it stems from my connection with the ocean.
Okay.
I think I find my creativity in showing up to the same or similar
Yeah.
circumstances over and over and over again, and being able to and trying to find a new perspective, a new look, a new
Yeah.
style of shooting that. And I
Yeah.
think that's where my creativity draws. The ocean is always changing. It can look so different day to day, let alone like hour to hour.
Yeah.
And I think my creativity just stems from knowing that I can show up to a place and I can decide how I want to capture it today. And I
Yeah.
can decide, in what ways I want to share that and what ways I want to capture it. But especially with the ocean, being able to show up to the same place every day and see something new in it every day, I think is inspiring to my creativity to
Yeah.
continue to just not only in my photography, but in the world,
Yep.
continue to be open minded, continue to look at the world in different perspectives every day in both my personal and my professional life, and much further beyond that
Yeah.
is to just continue to look at the world in different ways and see
Right.
different perspectives. And I think that's where my creativity really lies, and
Nice.
just knowing that every day can be different even if I'm shooting the same thing.
It's amazing. I think the most amazing part for me is you go to these different places, the water never looks the same. It's a different shade of blue. It's a different, like, takes you back for a second as to the beauty of it. That's my favorite part of it. I was lucky enough to go to Jamaica almost 2 years ago, and I got there and I was like, this isn't real. I was like, this is incredible. Um, but I've been to the Bahamas as well and Hawaii, and it's beautiful in its own separate way, every place you go to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The ocean is just, I mean, it's just, yeah, I have few
Yeah,
words for
yeah,
it.
it's hard. It's hard to describe the ocean. It is vast and it is a beautiful place. Now I've been wondering ever since you introduced yourself, do you still surf today? Are you like, do you still get up on the board and surf?
So I try to.
Okay.
I think I'm super lucky, and I think a lot of my progression and growth in
Yeah.
my field is a lot of surf photographers and a lot of people in surf media. I
Yeah.
think they see surf photography as as kind of an opportunity to get to travel and an
Yeah.
opportunity to, go to places they maybe wouldn't otherwise to
Yeah.
surf.
Yeah.
Whereas I started this journey surfing. That was
Yeah.
kind of my connection to the ocean. But for me now, if the conditions are good, I do not have to second guess if I want to
Yeah.
shoot or I want to surf.
Yeah.
I want to shoot 100% of the time. I
Yeah.
think a lot of other photographers struggle because there are days that they don't know if they want to surf or they want to shoot. Whereas for me, I'm like, no, I want to be in the water. If conditions are good, I want to be in the water. That's like kind of my
Yeah.
go-to. So, um, yeah, I think just like that for me is like what has allowed me to progress and to grow so quickly. And I try to surf as much as I can. I still love it. I
Yeah.
surfed yesterday for the first time in a couple of months.
Nice.
And sometimes I have to drag my feet to get out there
Yeah.
just because, even if the conditions are not that great, if I get to go surf with friends and I'm like really falling in love with capturing the more intimate moments of surfing as
Yeah.
well, besides just like the raw power and performance of the sport.
Yeah.
Capturing the moments in between of someone paddling out after a wave or kicking off of a wave or, paddling out to the break. So for me, I just always want to shoot, but I do occasionally surf. I try, sometimes the conditions aren't ideal to swim, so I have to get in the ocean some way. So I try to surf here and there, but I have too
Yeah.
much camera equipment to travel with boards. So it's always just like, oh, I'm gonna borrow a board from a friend if I really want to get out there. So I try, but I just
Yeah.
enjoy shooting too much. So
It's one of those things on everybody's bucket list, learn how to surf. And
yeah.
not everybody does it, and it's always one that's enjoyable to watch people try to do for the first time. Um,
Yeah.
as you're like, I'm just gonna go get the boogie board or something like that. That's really is good, just gonna allow me to have fun and not fall on my face.
Yeah.
My last question for you, Jesse, is just what inspires you?
I think it's kind of a twofold question for me. I think I have what inspires me in my personal life and what inspires me kind of in my professional life. Um, I think in my professional life, chasing big waves is what inspires kind of the entire approach that I have to living my life.
Yeah.
It's so much more than, just a lot. Almost anyone can shoot from the beach. Wanting
Right.
to do it from the water is extremely dangerous, extremely challenging, and can be a pretty gnarly world. And I think it inspires me to live my life in a way that, I'm very mindful about how I show up to a place,
Yeah.
just in terms of like stepping into a new place culturally,
Yeah.
how I, fuel my body, the kind
Yeah.
of training I'm doing, the kind of sleep I get, all
Yeah.
of these things that go into it. That kind of is like the overarching inspiring thing.
Yeah.
I think professionally as well, the thing that really drew me in besides just connecting my creativity in the
Yeah.
ocean was getting to connect that with other people.
Yep.
And like recently out here in Hawaii, I was shooting on a day and some new friends that I had made, shooting this fans event were out there. And I just got some images of them passing by and surfing, even though I was like shooting a completely different project. And one of the guys ended up reaching out to me and was like, "These photos are amazing. I've actually never seen myself surfing in the water from a water angle." And
Yeah.
so I was able to give him those photos,
Yeah.
and just that connection to see someone's face light up when they first get to see themselves
Absolutely.
surfing in the water is what always draws me back.
Yeah.
And that can be hard because in professional surfing, professional surfers don't really care about photos of
Yeah.
themselves because they have thousands of them, and it's but it's so much more intimate to give someone who, may not have as many photos of themselves surfing. And
Yeah.
that is something that I get to show up and do and connect,
Yeah.
those worlds together. And that is always keeping me. That is like something that I will always be drawn back to because
Love it.
I know the impact in my personal life that the ocean has had on me.
Yeah.
So getting to just share that with others the way that they can share it with their own world, I think is unparalleled,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like my professional inspirations. I think personally, um, my mom is my biggest inspiration in
Yeah.
that she is someone who really lived life to the fullest
Yep.
and was always intent on teaching us that we need to create a life for ourselves that we are excited to wake up to every single day.
Absolutely.
And that is something that's definitely easier said than done.
It is.
But I think having that as my like personal inspiration to say, I want to create a life for myself that, if I don't get to shoot in the water, or if it's a travel day,
Yeah.
or if it's just a training day, I am just as excited
Yeah.
than the days that are the super high highs of,
Yeah.
capturing competitive surfing or getting to swim out at my favorite break or
Yeah.
getting to challenge myself in bigger surf. I think that they really balance each
Yeah.
other out
Absolutely.
and just remind me that, it's if we're constantly looking toward the next great big best thing,
Yeah.
we miss out on a lot.
We do.
And I think slowing down and enjoying those moments in between are just as important as enjoying the high highs because
Yeah.
when you learn to enjoy, these lower and slower moments,
Yeah.
the highs and the accomplishments and all the achievements that eventually come with it are so much more enjoyable and so much more, I think, tangible
Yeah.
because we really have embraced the moments that were harder to deal with and harder to get through to get to those
Yep. Appreciate the small moments. Appreciate the little things in
moments.
life. It is. It's the once again. It's the getting off the technology and the phones and actually just like looking around you and having
Yeah.
appreciation and just kind of taking it all in. But that is the beautiful thing, and I wish more people celebrated and lived life that way. Um, because I think we get to the end and we're like, oh, there's so many things that I didn't appreciate or I didn't get to do, and it's too
Yeah.
late. And so I think it's the world's a better place when we all get to live like that. So
Yeah, definitely.
Jesse, I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking with me today. I cannot wait to see more of your incredible work in 2020.
Thank
And
you.
wherever you will be next, I'm sure it's going to be someplace really beautiful with very blue water. Um, but I'm so looking forward to see what 2023 has to hold for you.
Thank you, and thank you so much. It's amazing talking, and
Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you guys do not follow Jessie, all of her socials will be linked down below. So please go give her a follow and take in her amazing work. And as always, I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.